Dear viewers, I would like to welcome you to the next edition of our TPA Observer podcast. Today's podcast will be dedicated to Polish energy policy, which is called PEP 2040. So this is a document outlining the development of the Polish energy sector until 2040. And today as a guest is with me Maciej, Krokosinski, partner at Baker Tilly TPA. And Maciej is involved in numerous transactions in energy sector, especially in renewable energy sector. And therefore, I invited him to talk with him about the changes that might result from this new policy. So, Maciej, welcome.
Hello, Krzysztof.
Nice to have you on our podcast. As I said, you're quite experienced in transactions taking place in Poland on the renewable energy sector. So there are a lot of energy sources that are being acquired by investors. That might be utilities, that might be funds, that might be developers, depending on the stage of the development of the given renewable energy source, and there is this new document. So actually, an updated version of the old document. And could you tell me what the key message coming out of this document is for the Polish energy industry?
Okay, in terms of the Polish energy industry, there are three key messages. Two of them concern renewable energy sources, which are probably the most important part of our conversation today. So those three key messages, to cut long story short, are that the document estimates that there will be a rapid development of renewable energy sources, especially in the area of photovoltaic installations. The second message is that this rapid growth will slightly decelerate after year 2033, which is the year when a nuclear power plant starts to operate. And the third message is not concerning renewable energy sources, but concerning rather the traditional or fossil fuel energy sources. So it assumes some sort of reduction of gas consumption when compared to the previous version of the other document and the cost of coal consumption. However, it does not directly impact the renewable energy sources development in the future. Obviously, the document also mentions the transition cost of the total transition cost of our economy to net zero-emission economy. This cost is quoted at the level of 1.2 trillion Polish zloty. It also mentions the expected capital expenditures, which are going to be assigned or dedicated to development of new sources of generation of electricity, not only renewable, but also controllable nuclear energy plant. And it's assumed that those costs will amount around 760 billion Polish zloty until 2040.
Okay, so it seems to be quite interesting. It's a lot of expenditure, a lot of changes, and huge infrastructure outlays.
Exactly.
That are taking place. It's also interesting about the grid, how the grid can develop in order to accommodate all that. That's also, I think, part of it, and it's very interesting. So you said it's a general document that outlines how the electricity production should be organized, let's say, in Poland in the next, let's say, 18, 17 years, and what the final target is. That's quite interesting. In today's podcast, we'd like to talk more about renewable energy sources, so what it actually means for this industry, or this part of the whole energy industry. And here I would like to tell you to tell me exactly by each source and what it means and what the production from renewable energy sources should be and so on.
Yeah, okay. Let's start from the general perspective. Obviously, PEP mentions the share of the renewable energy sources in the production mix until 2040. It also mentions a kind of forecasted level of the energy production until that date. So to understand the perspective, we need to take into account those two figures. In terms of the production of the electricity in the Polish economy, we expect that the annual level of that production will amount to around 244 terawatt hours per year. Currently, we have around 174. That's the level of year 2022. So we will experience in the next, I would say, 15, 17 years an increase of electricity demand at the level of around, I would say, 40%. So out of those 244 terawatt hours, 51% is expected to be generated from the renewable energy sources. And this 51% seems to be a kind of limit which may be quite difficult to exceed. As you mentioned, there may be some, there are some problems and limitations connected with the electricity transmission network. And because renewable energy sources are uncontrolled, they may create at certain point of time, especially caused by weather conditions, may create some power generation deficits. That would cause the network, the transmission network, to be unstable and would result in delivery deficits of the electricity to the customers. What is not the most desired scenario and it should be avoided at all cost. So PEP assumes that this 51% is a kind of maximum level given the shape of the modernized electricity transmission network, and does not expect that percentage or that share of renewable energy sources in the production mix to be exceeded significantly.
Okay, so just to get more details on that, so this 51%, does it somehow, are there any countries where there is, let's say, 51%, but I would, let's say, not talk about countries that have, let's say, hydro, which is sometimes for geographic reasons, it might be the source, like in Norway or Austria, other countries like that. But of course, let's say, for example, Germany.
Yeah, I think that level of share of the renewables in the energy mix is similar to the levels noted in Germany. So it looks like that this assumption is correct or is realistic, especially given that the energy mix in Germany is relatively similar to the one in Poland, and there are not huge differences. So from that perspective, we could say that 51% is okay, and given development or rapid development of renewable energy is achievable and also manageable by the network.
Okay, so we have, let's say, the overall picture of renewable energy sources and industry in Poland, how it should develop as a whole. But then could we somehow talk about different technologies? So what the mix is, that was also very interesting.
Yeah, of course. Let's start with the onshore wind, which is quite present on the Polish market and quite well developed. So PEP assumes that by 2030, onshore wind farms will be producing around 34 terawatt hours, what is a significant increase from the levels noted today. Today we've got around 18 terawatt hours annually, so it will be like an increase of around 100%. This share of onshore or of electricity produced by onshore winds in the total energy mix is expected to be around 17.2% in 2030. What's interesting, the level of production of electricity from onshore wind farms will not change significantly or even at all until 2040. It will be at the same level of 34 terawatt hours. But the share of that electricity will slightly decrease to 14% in the total energy production mix.
Sir, just to interrupt you. So what you're basically saying is that there will be no new investments in renewable and onshore wind farms starting from 2030, less. Unless replacements, there might be replacements, but not really new.
Exactly. Replacements are possible, but PEP does not assume any significant investment in new powers in onshore wind farms, what may be also a kind of result of limitations still existing in the 10H Act, despite the fact of some kind of liberalization, which was introduced at the beginning of this year. But yes, the level of production is not going to change at all from 2030 to 2040. Okay, going further, we can look at the onshore wind. Obviously, at the moment, there is quite dynamic development process of this type of renewable energy source. There is no production of electricity from that source currently, but it's expected that the first offshore wind farms will start to be operating in 2026. So until 2030, PEP 2040 assumes that the production of the electricity will reach the level of 22 terawatt hours, what will be not probably, but what's expected to be around 11% of the total production mix, which the level of production at 43 terawatt hours in 2040, what will result in increase of the share in the energy mix up to 18%. So this is the most, I would say, expensive part of that transition process in terms of capital expenditures in renewable energy sources, but it's on a relatively good way to be realized in the nearest future. Obviously, we also got the third main, I would say, sector of renewable energy sources, so photovoltaic installations. They are expected to produce around 29 terawatt hours until 2040. Today it's 13 terawatt hours, so it's going to increase the production by more than 100%. And those productions, this production increase is a result of new prosumer installations which are going to be constructed or installed in the future, but also from photovoltaic installations created and developed by, I would say, separate operators. Last but not least, we can also mention that there are some other, I would say, a little bit less, maybe not important, but having less share in the total production, energy production mix, energy sources like biomass and biogas, which will be responsible in the future or until 2040 for around 14 terawatt hours. That will represent around 6% of the total electricity production. So that's more or less how the landscape of the production mix looks like when we analyze the renewable energy sources.
Okay, but also I think it's fairly important to add that we have to have also some form of storage. Yes, because as I understand, we have so many different sources of renewable energy, and especially a lot of wind power. Then without storage, we wouldn't be able to use it effectively. So what are the plans here?
Yes, I fully agree. Storage is quite critical component which should allow the electricity network, transmission network to operate effectively. Obviously, we are talking here about renewable energy sources which are uncontrollable, so we cannot control the amount of the electricity being produced. So the storage solutions is a must. PEP 2040 also assumes that there will be quite significant investment in this kind of technology, and the forecast is that there will be new storage capacities with installed power of 5 gigawatt in when we are talking about pump storage power plants, and also 5 gigawatt when we are talking about other storage facilities, like, for example, batteries or hydrogen.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so we know more or less the total amount we are going to spend on energy infrastructure in Poland within this whole energy policy mix. We know how much energy is going to come from different energy sources. And what would be interesting is still the capacity that has to be developed in order to meet these targets, and the amounts of money, so the capex that is going to be borne by investors, developers, in order to meet these targets. So can you somehow elaborate on that?
Yes, I agree. This is probably the most important and the most interesting part for the developers and investors on the Polish market. It's expected that in 2030 is going to be 57% of the total power capacity available, and in 2040 that percentage will increase to 74%.
So the 74% of capacity will generate 51% of energy.
Exactly.
Okay. Which is understandable given the fact that the efficiency of these sources is not maximal as is in terms of nuclear power or coal or gas. Okay, and what is the planned investment?
The planned investment to reach this 74% share in the structure of the power available amounts to 440 billion Polish zloty.
Okay, so it's around 100 billion euro. Which is again quite significant.
Exactly,
given the size of the Polish economy. And where is the largest increase expected?
When you are talking or asking about the power, the largest increase is expected in photovoltaic installations. This is also the biggest change introduced to the updated PEP 2040. In the previous version, the expected power capacity was at the level of 16 gigawatts. In 2040, now it's expected to be around 45 gigawatts at the same time. And it's expected to steadily rise from 13 gigawatts currently.
Okay. And what is the expected amount of investment? Because so what I understand is about 32 gigawatts of new solar power.
Exactly. The expected capex until 2040 is estimated at 107 billion Polish zloty.
Okay, so this definitely depends also on the development of the grid. So because without the grid connection, we won't be able to connect these new sources.
Grid connection and obviously storage facilities, which are quite important elements to enable the grid connection to be effective.
Okay, so another group is offshore renewable energy. So can you tell me what?
Exactly. In offshore, we will have quite a dynamic increase in power capacity. Obviously, currently the offshore wind farms are not operating, but they're expected to start in 2026. And until 2030, we are expecting to have capacity at the level of 6 gigawatts. Around 6 gigawatts, and that capacity is expected to increase until 2040 up to 11 gigawatts. Total investment is going to be huge, and probably that's the biggest capex investment which is expected to be devoted to a single sector of renewable energy sources, but not also to them. So it's going to amount 221 billion Polish zloty being a huge capex.
Okay, I heard also that the capacity of the Polish part of the Baltic Sea is, let's say, bigger than even 11 gigawatts, but it's probably that's what is planned, but still it's possible that there might be even more.
It's possible. There are some predictions, estimations, or research which indicates that the capacity of the Polish sector of the Baltic Sea can accommodate up to 18 gigawatts of capacity. So there is still a kind of potential to develop this capacity in this kind of sector of renewable energy sources.
Okay, so let's now move to onshore wind, because this is, let's say, the oldest source that was developed, and so now we have around 8.3 or 8, something like that, gigawatts. And what is the plan?
The plan is assumed in PEP 2040 is around its capacity at around 14 gigawatts, and this will require additional capex investment of around 74 billion Polish zloty. Obviously, this increase in capacity will happen until 2030, as we mentioned before. After that date, it's not expected that any further new developments in onshore wind are to occur on the land, and this part of capital expenditures will be spent quite quickly.
Okay. Are there any estimates concerning storage and pump storage?
Storage and pump storage. This is around 57 billion Polish zloty. This is also a huge investment, quite crucial, as we mentioned, in terms of ensuring stability of the electricity transmission networks. So yes, this is also going to be a kind of big chunk of capital expenditures to be spent in the next years.
Okay, so that seems to be quite interesting. I think this is a huge challenge. I think that the Polish government, developers, financing institutions, and people involved in the sector, so anybody who is involved into the development of the grid, especially, and all officials that are involved in the permitting process and so on, have a lot of work to do. But if that happens, if we manage to do that, I think that will change significantly the picture of the Polish energy. And I think this is necessary because coal production seems to be absolutely not supportable in the long run due to the cost and due to the emissions. So thank you for the explanation.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.